Death Valley National Monument is a desert subsidence located on the border between the Mojave and Great Basin deserts in the U.S. state of California. True to its foreboding name, Death Valley is widely known as the hottest place on Earth during the summertime, and the location of the highest air and surface temperatures ever recorded, with the former reaching a temperature of 134 degrees Fahrenheit and the latter reaching a temperature of 201 degrees Fahrenheit. Additionally, Death Valley is also the lowest point in the United States, as it lies at an elevation of 282 feet below sea level. Interestingly, the extreme temperatures within Death Valley are thought to be the result of a number of unique environmental factors, of which I won't go into great detail in this video, but to offer an oversimplified, general explanation for the sake of brevity. Essentially, the shape of the valley causes it to trap hot air within it, which is then heated and rises, yet is unable to escape the confines of the valley and subsequently sinks to the valley floor, only to be perpetually reheated cyclically over and over again. The extremely hot and dry climate within Death Valley, particularly during the summer months, is an extremely inhospitable environment for humans, as the dry, unrelenting desert heat can swiftly dehydrate the human body, and with almost no available sources of water or shade, there is little reprieve from the unyielding rays of the sun in the sky above, and visitors to the Death Valley National Monument must remain acutely aware of the dangers of visiting such an extreme and potentially lethal environment. On July 8, 1996, a small group of 4 tourists hailing from Germany, consisting of a 34-year-old man named Egbert Rimkus, who was accompanied by his 11-year-old son named Jörg Weber, with the pair being accompanied by Egbert's 27-year-old girlfriend named Cornelia Meyer, as well as her 4-year-old son named Max Meyer. After arriving at the Los Angeles International Airport, they would subsequently rent out a dark green 1996 Plymouth Voyager minivan to embark upon their planned road trip around the southwestern United States. The German tourists would spend the initial few days of their trip visiting Southern California before they set off across the desert in their minivan to make the relatively short drive from Southern California to the city of Las Vegas in southern Nevada. The 4 would spend the following few days in Las Vegas, where they stayed at the Treasure Island Casino. However, while in Vegas, Egbert and Cornelia seemingly did not fare well in their luck while at the casinos, as on the morning of the group's departure from Las Vegas, July 22nd, Egbert would make a phone call to his bank back in Germany to request $1,500 to be wired to him in California. Additionally, following his phone call to the bank, Egbert would send a fax to his ex-wife, also back in Germany, to request that she wire him some money in California as well, a request that she would summarily ignore. That same day, July 22nd, the 4 Germans would depart from the city of Las Vegas and hit the road in their green Voyager, bound for Death Valley, the first stop on their return trip back to LA, before their flight back to Germany on July 27th. Upon arriving at Death Valley National Monument, the tourists would make a brief stop at the Furnace Creek Visitors Center, where they purchased 2 German editions of the Death Valley National Monument Museum text, and from there, they would subsequently make their way to Tonopah Canyon, where they would camp for the night. The following day, on July 23rd, the 4 Germans would pack up their overnight campsite and load it into their green minivan, where they planned to sightsee as they hop between various tourist locations within the park's boundaries, including the abandoned Warm Springs mining camp in the southwest region of the park, where all four would sign the guest logbook kept at the site, with Cornelia penning a short message in German that noted that they were headed over the pass, subsequently making their way along the rough back roads of the park for a while before they reached the geologist's cabin in the remote Butte Valley region of the park, where they would proceed to pilfer an American flag from the cabin to take as a souvenir back to Germany. However, following this, Egbert, Cornelia, Jorg, and Max would never be seen or heard from again, as they would seemingly vanish into thin air. The four Germans would, of course, never board their return flight back to Germany, and after they failed to arrive back in Germany as planned, Egbert's ex-wife, whom he had faxed on July 22nd requesting money, began to grow increasingly concerned and would contact officials in the United States to inquire whether the four had boarded their return flight and to ascertain their potential whereabouts. However, aside from confirming that they hadn't boarded their return flight, nor returned their rental minivan, which had been reported stolen by the rental company over the next few months, Egbert's ex-wife was unable to find any further information regarding the four's whereabouts, as they had seemingly vanished from existence entirely without any trace. Later that year, on October 21st, 1996, park rangers who were conducting helicopter surveillance in the most remote reaches of Death Valley in search of narcotics manufacturing labs would discover the German tourist's dark green Plymouth Voyager in the remote Anvil Canyon region, and would subsequently make their way to the site to take a closer look. Upon closer inspection, rangers would find that the van had long been abandoned, with 3 of its tires completely shredded and the wheels beneath them also badly damaged, clearly from continuing to drive on them without tires across the rocky terrain in the area for a considerable distance. Inside the interior of the van, they would find an empty pack of Bud Ice beer, a brand new sleeping bag, the stolen flag from the geologist's cabin, the 2 German copies of the Death Valley National Monument Museum text, various children's toys, and notably, an unused tire jack and tire as well. However, there was seemingly no trace of the 4 Germans or their heading from which they may have departed from the van. Following this discovery, a large-scale search operation consisting of over 200 participants was organized to search for the missing German tourists, and they would comb the surrounding area, searching for any potential clues as to their whereabouts. However, after 5 days of thoroughly combing the area, the search party had only managed to unearth a single clue, a Bud Ice beer bottle that matched the pack found in the abandoned van beneath a large bush over a mile away from the van, and further discovered that a small ledge beneath the bush had seemingly been cleared of debris and used as seating by one of the adults, who likely had sought shelter from the beating rays of the scorching summer sun beneath the shade cast by the bush. After the large search team failed to uncover any further clues as to the Germans' whereabouts, however, on October 26th, the search efforts were called off, as the 4 tourists' ultimate fates would seemingly remain a mystery. Over the following years, many theories as to the fate of the 4 tourists would emerge, including that they had possibly gotten lost and potentially happened across one of the aforementioned labs that the rangers who discovered the van had initially been searching for and had been subsequently silenced, although it was largely agreed upon that it was most likely that they had simply gotten lost and had wandered from the van and subsequently perished from heat stroke in the desert as the temperature recorded on July 23rd in Death Valley was a sweltering 118 degrees Fahrenheit, with multiple days reaching temperatures exceeding 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the days preceding and following it. However, as the remains had not been located, many questions about their disappearance would remain unanswered, and thus, over the following years, small grassroots search efforts to locate their remains were conducted, mostly by off-duty park rangers who were familiar with the remote and hostile environment of the region. On November 12, 2009, two such searchers, a man named Les Walker and a man named Tom Mahood, would happen across human skeletal remains as they searched for further clues about the missing German tourists, with the site of their discovery being located almost exactly 5 miles to the southeast of where the minivan had been found, and 4.5 miles to the south of where the empty beer bottle was recovered, and several personal identifying artifacts, including Cornelia's passport, an empty wine bottle, and a journal containing entries written in German, were located in the immediate vicinity of the skeletal remains. After they were exhumed from the site, the skeletal remains were determined to have belonged to one adult male and one adult female, and further DNA testing of these remains would confirm that the bones of the male indeed belonged to Egbert, but the results were inconclusive for the female victim, although due to the presence of her passport and other personal items in the vicinity of where these remains had been found, it is assumed that the female remains belonged to Cornelia. However, curiously, despite recovering the sole of a child's shoe in the vicinity of the skeletal remains, the remains of 11-year-old York and 4-year-old Max were nowhere to be found, and ultimately have never officially been recovered by authorities, although there are several unverifiable reports that children's bones had also been exhumed during the subsequent search of the surrounding area of where the adults' remains had been found, although as the discovery of their remains was never publicly announced by officials, these reports' validity are questionable at best. In wake of the discovery of the skeletal remains of Egbert and Cornelia, many questions remain as to why they were drinking Bud Ice of all beers. I've been to Germany and I know that most Germans know what good, or at least half-decent beer tastes like. Questions such as why the tourists had opted to take the minivan on a road designed for dedicated 4x4 vehicles in this extremely remote region of Death Valley on a scorching summer day in July, or why they had seemingly initially headed east from the van and then had opted instead to head south before they ultimately likely succumbed to heat stroke in the unrelenting summertime sun, as well as further questions about the whereabouts of the children's remains, although ultimately it's impossible to ascertain their thought process post-mortem, and these answers will likely remain a mystery, although I'd love to hear your thoughts as to what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, as these videos take quite a bit of work to make all by myself, and doing so really helps out the channel a whole lot. Thank you all for watching.